No, because we see the Old Testament being fulfilled through Jesus, who ushers in the New Testament.
One like Psalm 2.
So you got,
please, Psalm 2. Psalm 2.
All of the,
give me Psalm 2.
All the Old Testament prophecies of Jesus, all there, all explained.
Show me one Old Testament. Does Psalm 22 mention Jesus?
All the evidence is there.
Does Psalm 22 mention Jesus?
I don't know.
Well, it doesn't. I do know, and it doesn't. So there you go. So
well, I haven't got it down.
Well, you're saying it's. Hang on, mind your back.
Psalm 2.
Oh, Psalm 2. Does Psalm 2 mention Jesus?
God's royal son with rule over nations.
Who is God's royal son in Psalm 2?
Acts 13.
No, wait. Don't just throw text at me. Psalm 2, who's it about?
Jesus.
Okay, if you read Psalm 2, it's about David. It's actually a Psalm of David addressing King David. This is not a trick. It actually says it in the passage. It's addressing David. It doesn't mention Jesus.
Okay, can I answer you?
Please.
Jewish Second Temple interpretation. Should we go to that?
No,
the Jewish Second Temple interpretation?
I want to focus on Psalm 2.
Yeah, that's what I'm focusing on.
Okay. Go ahead.
IQS and 4Q, fluorine, whatever. Qumran. Apply Psalm 2 to Messiah.
Okay.
Jesus equals God's son over the nations.
Does the Dead Sea Scrolls mention Jesus?
No, we've got to finish this.
Well, there we are then.
We've got to finish Psalm 2's point. In Psalm 2, God's royal son with rule over nations. Rule over nations. Acts 13:33, Hebrews 1-5. It's a direct quotation, and Jewish Second Temple interpret it as the Messiah. Key match, Jesus equals God's son over the nations. Next. Do you want me to give you another?
Please continue.
Old Testament?
So let's just read the first few verses of Psalm 2. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast their cords from us, and so on. Now, the anointed here means often translated as Messiah, but there are lots of anointed individuals in the Jewish Bible. Are you aware of that? Yeah. David is an anointed at his coronation in 1 Samuel. He's anointed. Yeah. Cyrus is not even an Israelite. He's a Persian king. He's called God's anointed, God's Messiah. You aware of that as well? Yeah. I can go through lots and lots of people. So it's not referring to a massively future, many centuries later guy called Jesus. Okay. To assume that is not historical.
Thank you. So can you explain, please?
Yes.
Why did the Jewish Second Temple interpret it as the Messiah?
When you say Second Temple Judaism, what do you mean by? Okay, no, hang on. Second Temple Judaism refers to the whole of Judaism from the Second Temple up to AD 70, presumably. Yeah. Hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Are you saying that whole period understood that passage as referring to Jesus?
As to the Messiah.
Yeah, but it's not Jesus necessarily.
Do you agree, does it interpret as the Messiah?
Are you agree that Cyrus was a Messiah?
There were many Messiahs.
Precisely. But why do you specifically say it has to be one individual and not, why do you identify it and not others?
Because even the Jews in Acts,
yes.
Don't forget, forgive me, the first church, first round of the early church, where was it?
You tell me.
Don't you know?
You tell me.
Where did they pray, the first Jews?
No idea, you tell me.
The first Christians prayed in the temple, in the Jewish synagogue.
Why do they pray in the temple?
They were praying with the Jews in the temple, in the synagogue.
Were they Jews themselves?
Yes.
I see. So why would Jews pray in the temple?
They were Christians. They believed that the crucifixion and resurrection.
No, hang on. I think are they Christians or they were Jews? I'm confused.
They were Christians.
Not Jews.
The first round of church was in the temples.
So you're saying the Christians upheld the Jewish law, yeah?
Not only that, Jesus was in the temple.
Do you eat pork?
So, hang on.
No, my point is this. Most Christians today, virtually all Christians, don't follow the Jewish law at all.
Wait a minute,
and yet you're holding up the first Christians as Torah-observant Jews who had to sacrifice in the temple, as it says in the Torah, But you don't follow any of this. Why don't you follow the practices of the earliest Christians?
Hang in there.
I'm hanging
you
in.
See,
I'm
you're
hanging
jumping on other questions which we can answer them, but we must agree.
You mentioned the temple in
We're
Jerusalem.
talking the temple. You're saying to me, right, that
Christians
Psalm
in the
2,
temple.
Psalm 2,
Yeah.
right, which is verified talking about Jesus in Acts 13:33 and Hebrews 1:5. Yeah, and these Christians, these Jews, Christians, were preaching this in their own synagogues and temple, and that's why you have the Jewish Second Temple interpretation, which you asked me.
Well, wonderful. Now I'm asking you about these early
Do
Christians.
you concede on that point?
I don't concede. I'm not. It's not a question of conceding. It's a question of
Whatever.
understanding.
Do you, do you respect that?
Let me just point one interesting fact out. These early Christians were practicing Orthodox Jews. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Right. Why are you not a practicing Orthodox Jew? Well, indeed. Why are you not following the practices of the early Christians?
Because Jesus came down,
Right.
crucified,
Yes.
and resurrected,
Yes.
and fulfilled all the prophecies,
Right.
right?
And the prophecies,
many other
the prophecies spoke about the abolition of the law. Yeah.
and the change of and fulfilled the law.
So where did the prophecies speak about the abolition of the law?
It didn't.
But you just said it did.
He fulfilled the law.
Okay. So that
He
means
fulfilled the law.
Fine.
Under a new covenant.
Wonderful. Does the new covenant have the law, the Jewish law? Does it require Christians to
You
follow?
need to get circumcised.
So you don't, what about the law? The 613 commandments of the law. Are they
Have
still
you
in
read
operation? Have I read Paul? I believe I might have looked at him once.
Paul, have you read Paul?
So you have conceded, as you put it, that the earliest Christians
conceded to anything.
were Jews,
Just tell
and
me.
you admitted they followed the law. I'm asking why you don't. See,
No,
They was expelled from the synagogues.
they were expelled from the synagogue.
The Christians, because they believed in the fulfilled law, and they were saying that you don't need to follow all the circumcision, that Gentiles can come in. The Jews didn't accept that, and they expelled them from the synagogues. So they were Jews. You're right. They were Jews, but
You were
because
right,
they believed the Messiah had arrived and the Messiah had been
I'm
fulfillment,
confused.
they
Did
was
the first
expelled.
Christians, were they Torah observant Jews? I'm
Sorry?
confused. Were the first Christians Torah observant Jews?
Yes, until the fulfillment.
Sorry?
Until the fulfillment.
And then they weren't anymore.
No, they was preaching
Yes.
in the synagogue. So Paul goes in the synagogue and he's beaten in the synagogues because he's preaching the fulfillment of the law. But now we have the new salvation under the new covenant.
So do we
So
follow?
although he considered himself a Jew, an observant Jew, he was preaching the salvation.
So what did he preach about the Jewish law? Do Christians have to follow the Jewish law?
Christians don't know.
I see. So I'm confused now because you said the early Christians did uphold the Jewish law, and then Paul says they don't have to follow the law. I'm confused about what Christians
Right,
should
so
do.
the early Christians were Jews. So think of Jews who believed that the Messiah had arrived. Jews who believed that the Messiah had come and fulfilled the law. And those Jews who believed the Messiah had come, they was expelled from the temple. And then in Corinth, wasn't it? When it was
Yeah, but coming back to the law.
It wasn't until Corinth that they was called Christians. So they was Jews who was expelled from the Jewish synagogue.
Antioch, actually, but anyway.
But they did pray. The first church was actually in the synagogue.
Yeah.
That's where they prayed. Not only that's where Jesus even preached.
That's right,
The book of Isaiah.
And when they're setting up the first churches, they followed the rule that you had to have, I think it was 60 to make a synagogue.
Yeah,
and that's
something
what
like
they preached at any place where you were setting
So
up.
just to clarify, so the first Christians were Torah observant Jews, and then later on they realised that was a big mistake, and they stopped following obeying the Jewish law.
It wasn't a big mistake. Later on, they had the teachings of Jesus Christ. They saw the salvation.
But why did the first Christians who had the teaching of Jesus not get it at first? Were they rather not very clever, or?
Well, they did get it. That's why they were thrown out of the synagogues.
Well, I thought you said they followed the law, the Jewish Christians.
Until they got Jesus' teaching.
So didn't they have Jesus' teaching, the first Christians? Didn't the first Christians have Jesus' teaching? I'm confused. Didn't the first Christians have Jesus' teaching?
The first Christians, yes, we're talking about the Jews.
Right, so why were they following the law when later on they abandoned it?
The Jewish followers, the Jews.
I'm talking about the Christians.
These were Jews who heard Jesus' words, who then witnessed the crucifixion and witnessed the resurrection. These were Jews. And these Jews then went and preached what they saw, and they went into the synagogues preaching the fulfillment of the law. And it was the Jews, their
What does fulfillment mean?
Jews,
What does fulfillment mean?
Jews.
Does fulfillment mean it's abolished?
It means that it served its purpose, that God gave the covenant to the Jews for a set
So it's
purpose.
abrogated. It's abrogated.
I suppose as a Muslim you might use that word abrogated.
As a Muslim,
yeah.
no, I'm just trying to understand. So the law was abrogated.
In Islam, when you have a law that Allah gives, that's no longer relevant because something has changed. Allah had it there for a set purpose, for a set period of time. Then He abrogates.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about Islam here. I'm clarifying.
We're coming to common terms.
I'm asking. I'm using English language that you both understand. Are you saying that the law was abrogated?
In the sense that Muslims understand
No,
abrogation?
not in the sense.
That's what I'm using.
Forget about Islam. I want to know how you understand, not how Muslims
I understand
it.
fulfilled. I understand that when
So-
something's fulfilled, it means I'm doing something, it has a purpose, I want an end result from it, I've achieved that end result, that is fulfilled. Now,
Is it abrogated?
Now, the new covenant takes over.
Is it abrogated?
No.
It's not. You disagree. Have a conversation, you two. You don't agree with each
Well,
other.
that's why I said in Islamic terms.
No. Can I ask you not to bring an Islamic term?
No,
I'm asking you about
No,
Christian terms.
he's right.
The
law was fulfilled.
You want to talk about Islam, do you?
We're having a discussion.
You're
In the
running.
Quran, it says come to common terms. So the best way for you to
it doesn't say that.
Christianity-
It doesn't say that.
The best way for me to
Let
understand
me
it is come to
let me
common terms.
explain to you why it doesn't say that. It says to Muslims to come to terms, common terms. But what I'm asking you to do is to explain your beliefs. As an academic exercise, I want to understand. You are not saying the law's abrogated, but you are saying it's not enforced. I'm confused. It sounds like it's abrogated.
It was fulfilled. And can I give you the answer?
So that's the word we would use.
The law was never declared.
I've got to get synonyms here. If you don't like the word abrogated, let's do some synonyms. Has it been repealed or done away with, the Jewish law?
Not repealed.
Oh, it's not. So it's not been abrogated. Okay. Can you think of another word that would describe?
Jesus said that didn't come to abolish the law.
No, other than fulfilled.
Well, why? That's the Christian word. Why do you want a different
Can you
word?
think of a synonym?
Jesus
That's the
said,
word
I
of
did not
Jesus.
come to abolish the
So
law.
it's not the word of Jesus.
So you're saying
it's not the word of
Jesus are not good enough on a
It's
debate
not the
about
word of Jesus. I'll tell you why. Jesus spoke Aramaic. Your New Testament's not in the language he spoke. It's in Greek, your language. And by the way,
Hang on.
Hang on a second. No,
Papias. Matthew was in Hebrew. The old one.
You're jumping in.
No, you're
The reason it's
It was his conversation to start with.
but I was speaking and he just jumped in. So the word, Jesus spoke Aramaic, he didn't speak English. The New Testament's in Greek, not the language he spoke. We are talking in English. Jesus didn't speak English. Don't ask me how I know.
Greek. You said he wasn't speaking Greek.
He preached in Aramaic. It was the language of his people.
But the language French at the time was Aramaic,
In Galilee?
Greek, and the Latin was coming in from the Romans, which is why on the cross, when Pilate put the charge up, he put them in Latin, in Greek, and Hebrew.
You accept he didn't speak English? You accept that Jesus didn't speak English? Okay.
Yeah.
You accept he didn't speak English?
No, English wasn't around in the Middle East at that time.
Really? Are you sure?
English,
I'm being sarcastic.
As we understand English, it's a quite modern language.
Right, fulfill, because you don't like to use any words other than fulfill. I'm going to look...
Using Jesus' word. What was the Greek for... Have you got the Greek? Where Jesus says he fulfilled Matthew...
The law was never declared false or abolished. Matthew 5:17.
But it was.
I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. The ceremonial and conventional requirements, circumcision, ritual purity, temple sacrifices, dietary laws, reached their
He doesn't agree with this, because he doesn't follow the law.
and are no longer
Unless I'm listening to
No,
another
you're
conversation.
right. You're backing my point. That's exactly what I'm arguing. You don't follow that teaching.
the moral content. No, we don't have to. We don't have to be circumcised.
No, it doesn't say that. That's your spin. I'm looking at the words of Jesus. Do not think I've come to abolish the law, but you believe it has been abolished.
No, we don't
All right,
believe it.
Do you eat pork?
Yeah,
Wait, excuse me, the Torah says that you cannot eat pork.
Yeah.
Did Jesus eat pork?
because
So, simple question. Did Jesus eat pork? It's not a trick question. I know that you can work out the answer. It's there in the Bible. Did Jesus eat pork?
Yeah, because they were no longer binding.
Oh, he did eat pork.
No,
he didn't eat pork.
he didn't eat.
Why didn't he eat pork?
Because it was under the law then.
Precisely.
It was the law.
But do you follow Jesus' teaching?
Yes.
But why didn't you not eat pork?
Because he's teaching. Well, let me answer.
Yeah. What's the answer? What's the answer?
His teaching was, he said,
yes,
hasn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it.
Which means what?
And he's finished with that covenant, that teaching, that law. Now,
is that what it says?
We don't have to be circumcised, ritual purity.
Where does Jesus say that circumcision had been abolished? Where did Jesus say that? And don't read from your Greek commentary. I want to know where Jesus said it. Where did Jesus say that circumcision, the requirement thereof, had been abolished? In the Gospels. Where did he say that?
When he says he's come to fulfill the law. So that was part of the law, the circumcision. Circumcision goes all the way back before the Mosaic law, goes back to Abraham.
It was transformed in Christ.
And in, what's the one where it says baptism now corresponds to this?
Right. You see, listen, when you say fulfilled, it's interesting, you won't give me a synonym for this, will you? You won't give me an alternative word for fulfilled.
No, because I'm going by the Bible, what the Bible tells us.
But fulfilled isn't actually in Jesus' language, it's English. So it's been translated, they've chosen this word.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the reason why you're mistaken is this. According to the NIV, do you accept the NIV? You won't, but do you accept the NIV?
Anyway, yeah, go with...
Because you're evangelical, you're not evangelical.
He's not evangelical.
You're not.
I'm not, and he's not.
Yeah, right.
He ain't.
What are you then?
Catholic. Catholic.
Oh, are you? Oh, you are. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. We're not.
Thank you for confirming that.
No, you're my mistake. My mistake. I remember you from a few weeks ago. You're not really arguing like a Catholic, but never mind about that. Do not. Okay, this is what
Catholic argue.
Jesus says in Matthew 17 about. It's like what he said about fulfillment. Yeah. Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. You agree with Jesus so far, do you? But truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the Jewish law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commandments, like eating pork, for example, and teaches others accordingly, will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches them these commandments will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the scribes of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, this means that the law is still very much in operation for the disciples of Jesus. It's not saying it's abrogated. I know you think it's a Muslim word. It's hilarious. It's a funny thing you said there. It's saying the law is in operation in Matthew's Gospel. But you don't believe that. As a Catholic, you don't believe that. You don't believe that as an Orthodox. Because you eat pork, for example.
Yeah.
Jesus says, whoever sets aside one of the least of these commandments of the law. Leviticus says you cannot eat pork.
Until when?
Until
heaven and earth pass away.
Yeah.
So
heaven and earth is not passed away.
Well, heaven and earth is Jesus.
We're still here.
In Jeremiah, God says, I will bring a new heaven and a new earth. That's the new covenant. It says that in Revelation as well. In Jesus' crucifixion, the temple of the curtain, which represents the barrier between heaven and earth, is destroyed. It is set asunder. So now the new heaven and earth are together. That's how the church fathers interpreted that.
But that's not what Jesus taught. You see, that's how the church fathers. Jesus said, until heaven and earth pass away, the law will not pass away. This is what he also said this to Jesus' disciples at the end of his ministry. He said this. Jesus says to his disciples and the crowds, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. In other words, they teach the law. You with me?
You must obey
so you must be careful to do everything they tell you to do, which will, by the way, will be not eating pork. But do not do what they do, for they don't practice what they preach. Do you agree with that teaching by Jesus?
At that time when Jesus is teaching that, Jesus is still on his mission walking the earth. So he has not done
do you agree with that teaching of Jesus?
Sacrifice. He has not sacrificed himself on the cross and risen from the dead yet. That's the new...
Why does it say, but I say to you?
So hang on, let me be clear here. So you're saying that Jesus' teaching is all kind of obsolete now because it all happened before his death on the cross?
Not obsolete, fulfilled.
Well, but it's no longer operational, is it?
At that time, the sacrifice hadn't been given.
Right.
So sacrifice.
Where does Jesus say that when I die on the cross, this teaching, which by the way will not disappear until heaven and earth will pass away, but it will pass away in 5 minutes' time when I die on the cross?
So when Jesus dies on the cross, when he sacrifices, I told you the curtain temple splits.
Yeah.
That's the new covenant, because Jesus, at the time, hang on.
Where do you get the abolition of the law from
when
the
time
curtain?
he's talking to them, they still have to follow the law that's been given for the remission of their sins. Otherwise, they have no remission. But then once Jesus is the new sacrifice, now you have that new remission of sins.
So where does Jesus teach any of this stuff? Well, Jesus doesn't say this in the Gospels. This is the end of his ministry. He's saying them to obey the teachers of the law in what they teach.
But where's the end
but
of his
because
ministry?
because there's a warning against hypocrisy.
What are you reading there?
Matthew 23. Matthew 23.
Matthew 5,
Matthew 23.
21 to 48, it says, but I say to you. He says, so, it is written, but I say to you.
Yeah, but he's deepening the law. He's not abolishing it.
Yes, he's reinterpreting.
Exactly, thank you.
He reinterprets
so why would Jesus, at the end of his ministry, reinforce the importance of obeying God's law, the Sharia, if you like, the halakha, the law, God's law? Only you say, 5 minutes later, you claim, when he dies on the cross, it's abolished. It doesn't make any sense. Why would he bother teaching this? Why would the church bother to preserve teaching which is no longer of relevance to them? You're not following Jesus' teaching. You are following a later doctrine invented by men.
No.
So
why did
Jesus
you say
Matthew 23.
Yeah, Matthew 23. Jesus is talking about the hypocrisy of the scribes and Pharisees.
Absolutely.
But because they have the law of Moses, they sit on the seat. They are the judges of the Israel.
Exactly.
You have to do what they say, but don't copy what they do, because they wear their long phylacteries.
Precisely. You're just repeating what it says. I've already said all this. My point is...
No, you're saying there's a change in sacrifices. What does it say there?
I'm saying what? I'm simply saying the law is operational even at the end of Jesus' ministry.
Where is it saying here?
Where's it saying what? Jesus teaching at the end of his ministry to uphold God's law. You're saying you don't follow God's law because shortly he's going to die on the cross. I'm saying, where does Jesus say that? Where does he say, oh, by the way, this is only going to be teaching for the next 5 minutes because the next day I'm going to be dying on the cross? He
says that he comes to be the sacrifice for us. In the Last Supper, his bread and his body is offered up for us. So it's at that point, at the Last Supper, when just before he goes on the cross, that's when the new sacrifice takes place.
Do you know what the problem with that is? The biggest problem of all, and this is something you've probably not thought about Jesus' own disciples. How did they understand this teaching we're talking about? Let's look at the head of the church. Who was the head of the church after Jesus ascended to heaven?
In Jerusalem, it was James.
Right, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at James. James, according to Eusebius, Hesapicus, and other sources, was elected or appointed by Peter and John and a few other people. So he was the successor of successor of Jesus. It's a bit like a Shia caliphate in a way. You had the family of Jesus, the royal family, succeeding each other. I know you've found, but this is, yeah. So what was the religion of James?
They was all Jews.
What was the religion? I'm talking about the ethnicity here. I'm talking about their religion. What was the religion of James?
So you don't recognise Judaism as a religion?
What is your point?
Is it Judaism?
Well, what was it then?
Well, I'm asking you a question. You're asking me the question.
I told
you said it was a Jew.
What was their religion? I said Jew, and you're saying that's not religion.
There are people down here.
Tell me what it is.
I'll tell you why. Because the people down here are atheists who are Jews. There's a guy over there who's an atheist.
Yeah.
So I want to know what the religion of this Jew was. What was it?
Second Temple Judaism.
So is it? That's good. That's good. That's lovely.
What's the difference between just saying Jew?
No, you're right. He according to our records, you've heard of Josephus, the Jewish historian. Yeah. You're aware that he wrote quite a bit about James. He was a first century Jewish historian from Jerusalem, a contemporary. And what did he say about James, the actual historical figure of James?
Go on, tell us.
Are you aware?
Bits and pieces that he wrote.
Bits and pieces. Yeah, like what?
Well, he
Give me
writes
some pieces.
So Eusebius, you were saying?
No.
What he wrote?
Josephus is in the first century.
Oh, Josephus.
We can talk about Eusebius as well. Eusebius is also relevant, by the way.
Yeah, go on then. Tell me what he said.
The overwhelming impression from all the sources, independent of the New Testament that I've looked at, Eusebius, the third century church historian, and the Jewish historian, not the Christian, Josephus, they all speak about James the same way. He was a Torah. This is how they portray him. He was a Torah observant Jew.
Yes.
He was. You say yes as if it's obvious, but given what you just said about the temple and all this stuff. Now, hang on. This is after Jesus' death and resurrection, according to you. Okay, the head of the church, elected by the apostles themselves.
Jerusalem Council.
What was his religion? His religion. You were right. was Judaism. It wasn't actually, that's a bit anachronistic, it wasn't rabbinical Judaism, that's a little bit later.
Rabbinic, yeah.
But second to temple Judaism, we'll call it that, second to temple Judaism, to be technical. Okay, so James did not understand the religion of his brother, because he was his brother, by the way, biological brother, in anything like, I know you shudder because you believe in the perpetual virginity of Mary, but that's not historical. James himself did not, it seems, understand his brother's religion and faith in the way that you do. Why? Okay. Because he did not see, once Jesus died as a sacrificial thing and the temple was fair, the law was no longer obligatory for people, he still carried on to obey the law. Okay. Why did he obey the law if what you're saying is true?
So, at the Council of Jerusalem...
You understand my point? That's it. Thank you.
At the Council of Jerusalem, when they're all arguing about whether they should follow the rules of the old Judaism...
Where the Gentiles should. Not they, not the Jews, the Gentiles.
Yeah, because the Jews have the covenant. So the
James was a Jew who followed Judaism.
If you have a covenant, it's bound by two parties. Okay. So the Jews were still bound by the covenant they had sworn to until they accepted Christianity.
Right.
So James stood up and said that we will not encumber them with...
Who's them?
The Gentiles.
Exactly. So I'm talking about Jews. Forget about Gentiles for a sec. I'm talking about the Jewish leaders of the original church in Jerusalem after the ascension of Jesus. How did they understand Jesus' teaching? My argument is they did not follow what you just said. They did not understand Jesus' death and resurrection as entailing that they no longer follow the Jewish law in its entirety. Why? Because all our evidence, Josephus, Eusebius, Hesepicus, etc., and James himself in Acts 15, who boasts how zealous all these Pharisaical converts are for the law. He boasts at the council. All our evidence suggests that they were fanatical Torah-observant Jews. And yet you're saying, oh no, when Jesus died on the cross, all this no longer applied. They had a new covenant. The temple was going.
Like that.
It doesn't add up. What I'm saying is it doesn't add up what you're saying.
Well, it does add up, because James is the one who stands up and says that we do not. If James is this fanatic Jew that you say, then he would have been insisting like the Judaizers, who that's the reason the council met, because there was Judaizers who were saying Gentiles must become Jews in order to benefit from the covenant. James is the one who stood up at the end of the council after Peter and others had spoken, and he said, no, we will not encumber them with this. Now, if he's this, fanatic Torah Jew, he would have said, you've got to have this. But he's realised that the new covenant
he wouldn't have said that. He wouldn't have said, because the Jews have never understood, correct me if I'm wrong, the Jews have never understood that the Torah, the 630 commandments of the law, apply to Gentiles. It only applies to the Israelites, with which God had a covenant with. He's not imposing it on the Syria, the Persians or anyone else. So this is a kind of an empty point. Yeah, of course, no one's ever saying the Gentiles should follow the commandments of God in the Torah. No one's ever saying that.
The Judaizers. They were. It tells us that the party of the Judaizers wanted all the Gentile converts to follow the laws of the Jews.
This is actually off the subject. My point is this. You argued that when Jesus died on the cross, the temple was torn up and all that, that the law, which Jesus said must be followed in Matthew 23, this teaching no longer applies. Is that right?
For the Gentiles, for the followers of the new covenant.
For Jews.
For those Jews who follow the new covenant, who are Messianic Jews, they don't have to.
Right. How come James did follow it then?
Because they were all members of synagogues and they had to follow what the synagogues were preaching.
James was not a member of a synagogue. He was the head of the church in Jerusalem.
He was still a member of the synagogues, because when Paul is
getting what he's a member of.
When Paul is getting maltreated by the Jews, James says to Paul that you should go into the temple and make the vow, so that they realise.
That was later. That was in the 50s. But I'm talking about AD 30.
Showing that they were part of the Jewish community. Right. They was part of the Jewish community.
Who? The Gentiles?
No, the apostles. They was all. Right. That's how they were going into.
Why was James still upholding and practicing the Jewish law, given what you understand about the role of the law?
Because he's going to the Jews. That's who they was first.
No, but why is he still a Torah-observant Jew at all? You said, you agreed with it 30 seconds ago, that in the new covenant, that this is no longer binding or required for Jews, for anyone to do.
Salvation requirement.
Yeah, but James and the early apostles did following the Jews. But why did they?
Because it was a culture.
What happened when Paul was accused?
Nothing to do with culture.
What
is.
It was a religious commitment.
No.
Culture.
No.
What happened when-
This is doing religion here, not culture.
It was cultural.
Come on, get serious.
It was continuing.
It's like saying a
right,
Muslim
right.
follows the
It's a
Sharia and a
continuity.
culture.
It's not to do with salvation.
It's not to do with culture.
Following that law, the old law was not a
They were
salvation.
trying to kill Paul because they accused him.
I'm not talking about Paul, I'm talking about James.
James, because he goes to James. When
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
Dude, Paul
When-
became a Christian later on.
When Paul comes down to,
That was
to
later.
James, he says, James says, I've heard the reports that the Judaizers
I know all this,
yeah,
I know,
and he has
I
to go
know,
and take
yeah.
a vow because
Are you
it's
aware
still
that
part
Paul
of the
became a
synagogue.
Christian later?
Yes, he was.
I'm talking about AD 30 at the beginning here. Before Paul was still breathing fire against the converts and all that. So forget about Paul. This is
was
before.
very early, yeah.
But
with the Council of Jerusalem, Paul was, Paul was a delegate.
I'm not talking about Paul. You want to keep
He was a
bringing
delegate at the Council of Jerusalem, though.
I'm
This is where
talking,
James
when was the
stands
Council of Jerusalem? AD 48?
up. So somewhere around there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about AD 30.
Right.
Years before. Right at the beginning. I'm talking at the beginning where